guys, good morning. So right now it is Friday. I actually slept in until 9:30. I haven't done that in years, and so I thought today might be a good day to try a read-a-thon. I have never done one of these before. I did when I was like in high school or in middle school, and I had time to just sit around and read all day. But as an adult and as a mom and as a full-time employee of a school, it can be really challenging to find times like this in your day where you can just sit around and read all day. So I figured today's as good as ever to try an 8-hour read-a-thon. So my plan is I've got these 4 books here that are on my TBR. We've got Dark Tide, we've got this indie book, Trouble in Mind, we've got this chapbook, Hansel and Gretel, Get the Word on the Street, and then lastly, Hidden Figures. All of these have been on my April TBR, and so I figure I've got these 4 books. I also have one audiobook, I believe it's called The New Confessions of an Economic Hitman. Very different kind of book than I would normally read, but I figure I've got all these options, so I want to sit down, get some coffee, cuddle up, and read some books today and see how it goes. So I will be basically just going through that process now, and yeah, this will be a fun and interesting vlog for y'all. Cool. So normally I like to lay in bed while I'm reading. It's because I live in a pretty small apartment. It's only 2 bedrooms, and oftentimes it can get really noisy around the house. Also, this is my daughter. Her name's Violet. She is also sleeping in today, apparently. So I like to just curl up in bed and have some coffee ready to go and just sit down and read. So for this first batch, I want to try and read for about an hour and see how that feels, because I haven't just sat down and read for an hour in a really long time. And then we'll kind of build up from there. We'll see if I can actually make it to 8 hours. I don't know. I think I might be setting myself up for failure, but hopefully not. Hopefully it's not. So the first book I'm going to start with is the 3rd book in the Water Fire Saga, and this is called Dark Tide. So one of the cool things that I like about this book series is that it's all about mermaids, which I love mermaids. And it's basically like very international mermaids. This is my YouTube channel.
Mermaids?
Yeah, mermaids.
It's a fish.
Yeah, it looks like a fish, right?
Look. This is swimming in the water.
That's right. She's swimming underwater.
Yeah, it's gonna go to cook. Get the toy.
So this is what we're gonna start with first today.
We got lost.
I might need to do her hair first before we actually start reading this, but that's gonna be our first book. Look at how delicious this breakfast looks. This is all stuff that my husband made. Scrambled eggs, avocado toast, and coffee, Cuban style coffee, café con leche, in my absolute favorite Hogwarts mug. It's kind of hard to see because of the light right now, but I'm obsessed with this mug. So it's just the perfect thing to have while you're sitting around and reading all day. Anyway, I picked a good one, y'all. All right.
Saw your picture on my timeline. You were backlit by the sunshine.
I've been reading for about 2 hours, and I am on page 152 of the book, which is chapter 25, and there's been so much action that has happened. Something I really appreciate about this book and this whole series really is the desire for the author to include a lot of diversity in it. So you have mermaids from literally all different parts of the world, except for Africa, and I'm going to talk about that in my wrap-up because I have some feelings on that. But you also have mermaids who have different abilities, and there's even one mermaid who's kind of disabled because she can't sing. You see the challenges that come with that throughout the book. But I really appreciate this because I think oftentimes in fantasy, there's this tendency to not want to go towards that discussion of diversity and representation, and it feels inauthentic. But I think the way that Jennifer Donnelly, the author, has structured it in here is actually really smart. So I just really appreciated that this author is taking the time to at least try that conversation. I don't know that she's always the most successful, but I've got to give people props when they're due. So I'm excited to keep reading and see where this story goes and how she kind of ties in all of these characters together. So I just had the best idea ever while doing this whole read-a-thon thing, and since I'm reading a book about mermaids, I decided, why don't I go ahead and head into the bathroom, turn out all the lights, turn on some candles, listen to some mermaid ambient music in the background, and that was the best idea ever. For an hour, I just sat there and read in the tub. It was everything I needed and needed to be just transported. So I think that's definitely something I'm going to start working into my regular reading routine, is maybe once a week, just head in the tub, turn out the lights, turn on some candles, put on some background music that goes with the theme of my book, and really build on it from there. So I don't know, just something different that I've never done before that I'm really glad I just tried. So pro tip. Okay guys, so I am in 5 hours into my read-a-thon. I've still got about 3 hours. I don't know if I'll actually make it to all 8 hours today, but I did finish an entire book, which was super exciting. And I have a lot of thoughts about this book. I really enjoyed it in terms of the action and the pacing and the plot, but I do have some qualms with the way that the characters were situated and whose stories we got to hear and whose we didn't. So overall, I think I'd probably rate this book about 3 stars. I'll have more of my thoughts in my wrap up at the end of the month, but hey, one book down. And I'm not sure what I'm gonna read next. I'm probably gonna take a break from reading for a little bit, and then, I don't know, maybe some poetry and then get into some nonfiction just to mix it up a little bit. We'll see. Okay, so I made it out of my Snuggie and I read another book. This one was a chapbook of poetry called Hansel and Gretel Get the Word on the Street. So this was part of the Rattle Poetry Prize in 2019, I believe. So there were actually 3 winners for that chapbook poetry prize that year. And out of the 3 that I read, I thought Kristine Olsen's book was actually the strongest. She made a connection between science and poetry in a way that I'd never really seen done before. I talked about that in my poetry video from last week. But I don't know, I feel like with this book, like, I identified a lot with the subject matter. The author is a poet who also teaches in public school. It sounds like he worked mostly with like upper middle school, lower high school age students, which I can definitely identify with as a middle school teacher. But at the same time, I didn't find any of the poems particularly groundbreaking or, I don't know, like just emotionally resonating with me. So I was a little bit disappointed in that, but I gave it a solid 3 stars, and I can go into more about it over in the wrap up. But at this point, it's like almost midnight, so I'm gonna read. I'll try to get through Trouble in Mind. I get the feeling that I'm not really gonna like that book, and if I don't, then I'll try to read Hidden Figures, but I don't know if I'll actually get to my 8 hours tonight. I might just need to finish up the readathon tomorrow. So we'll see. Who knows where I'm at. Okay guys, so I did not make it through all 8 hours yesterday for my readathon. By the time I got started on the 3rd book, it was already around midnight, so I figured I'll just call it a day and finish up the readathon the next day, which is what I've been doing. And the next book I've been reading is this collection of short stories called Trouble in Mind. I haven't been loving it that much. It's been okay. Like the first couple stories I didn't like at all. Then I just finished one that I really enjoyed. So I'm thinking I'm probably gonna finish this book, and then when I'm done, you know, I'll decide if I want to keep it or if I want to unhaul it. Again, it's one of those books that I got through an independent publisher, so it's like literary fiction and just not really something that I read very often. So we'll see how I feel. This last story changed my mind about it. I don't know if the other ones will be that good. We'll see. Okay, so I finally got to the end of my 8-hour readathon, and I'm so excited that I was able to do this because I don't get many chances in my life to just sit and read. So forcing myself to do this and not just hopping on the phone or doing work, but actually just taking the time to do one of my favorite activities was awesome, and I'm really glad I did it. This last book that I picked, though, not the best book to end on, although I will say I just read a short story that I absolutely loved. So there have been 2 short stories in this collection that I thought were phenomenal, and I'll talk about them in my wrap-up at the end of the month. But overall, I have to say, I am not much of a literary short story kind of person. I just feel like too often authors focus on being clever with their vocabulary and their structure, and they worry less about the story itself and the characters themselves. So I'm hoping that the rest of this book is okay, but right now, aside from the 2 stories that I've liked, like this is almost a 1-star read for me, which is pretty rare. But with that being said, thanks so much for joining me on this little journey of mine. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope I get other weekends like this where I can just sit around and read for a long time. All right, don't forget, if you want to keep up with me on a more day-to-day basis, you can follow me on Instagram at Shelly Flowers. I post videos once a week on Sundays, maybe sometimes extras. We'll see how that goes. With that being said, have a great night, and I hope you find some time to read something good this week. Bye.